Alright, welcome back to Flight Sim 2020, and in today's video I have a tutorial for you. So the FS2Crew for the ATR has just released, and I have to say I've done a couple of test flights with it. This, I think, is probably one of the most in-depth FS2Crews that I've seen yet. It is very, very cool, and there's a lot going on. And I've seen quite a few people struggling to get things working. So I've made FS2Crew tutorials in the past. This one is going to be a little bit different because I think the style that the ATR requires is very different from other cockpits, and that's probably why this FS2Crew feels quite different from the other products, but in a good way. There's a lot going on, and it feels a lot less like you're just kind of sitting and having your virtual first officer do everything for you like it can in some of the other aircraft. Yes, your virtual first officer does a lot of things for you, but there's quite a lot of backwards and forwards and things that you need to be aware of as captain. The first thing I will mention is I'm not going to go through the interface in this tutorial. I can possibly do that in a separate video because the interface is pretty much, it's almost identical across all of the FS2Crew products for Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, apart from the individual settings that you can choose. Obviously, those are specific to the aircraft, but how the interface is laid out and how you interact with it is pretty much exactly the same. So possibly, if needed at some point, I can do an interface tutorial, but today is going to be just getting through a full flight in the ATR with FS2Crew. And so we're parked on the ramp here at our Tambo in this Air Botswana A372-600, and we're going to be taking it over to Gaborone, so Seretse Khama. The next thing I should probably mention is, unlike some of the other FS2Crew versions, in fact all of the FS2Crew versions for Flight Sim 2020, with this one, I highly recommend that you actually have the PDF manual in front of you. So I've got mine loaded up on my tablet so that I can reference it. And the reason for that, which seems to be quite an odd choice for FS2Crew, if you compare it to the other products, is the captain's procedures or flows or whatever you want to call them aren't listed in the application or in the interface itself. If you compare that to the 737 and the A320, when there are flows that the captain needs to perform, those steps are listed in the software itself. Now, I don't know if this is something that's going to be added later on, because this literally came out yesterday, or if that is intentional. But anyhow, as it is at this point, you need to have those flows in front of you, at least until you get them memorized. If you're like me and you fly lots of different planes, that'll probably never happen. So I'm going to have the flows open. So it's right basically towards the bottom of the PDF. Starts off with the initial cockpit preparation procedure. And then underneath that you have guidance on how to go through the interface. But a lot of the stuff that's written in red in the PDF comes up in the FS2Crew interface anyway and tells you when to run that checklist. However, the actual flows don't. So I'm going to read those off of my tablet in front of me. The other thing I'm going to mention is that these terms that they've got for the different procedures and checklists and stuff very much seem like tongue twisters in the ATR. For example, full cockpit preparation procedure, initial cockpit preparation procedure, which is interesting. So I made the most mistakes out of any FS2Crew product going through these names because they end up being a little bit tongue twisting, which obviously isn't an issue. It's just the way it is. But that's the plan for today. We've got about just an hour and a half flight from here into Botswana. So let's jump aboard and start getting things set up, and you'll see right from the get-go this is quite different from other FS2Crew applications. The first thing I'm going to show you is just how to launch it. So if we go up to our menu here, as long as you have the FS2 command center running, this will be the first one that pops up because it's the newest, and we can just click launch, and and that will open up the FS2Crew interface. Right, so I normally have mine off on a separate screen just so it's out of the way, but for today's video, I will keep it up there so that obviously you guys can keep track of what's going on. Right, and that's exactly why I recommend
off.
It's exactly why I recommend having a hard mute switch on your controller or somewhere on your keyboard. So, well, I guess if you're just flying by yourself, it doesn't matter too much. But when I'm talking to you, I don't want FS2Crew picking up my voice commands, so I'm just going to mute FS2Crew or mute my microphone so that it doesn't pick up any of those as commands. Okay, one thing that is different, or another thing that is different about this aircraft is that the captain does the walk around. So we're going to have to do that. I'm not actually going to physically get out and do a walk around. I'll use that time to kind of explain some of the things that are going on. So we're going to start off with the normal command of let's start setting up. And our first officer, the very well-known Magna, is going to start that procedure and we're going to follow along. So the goal for today, there are different options. Like we can do turnarounds. We can start with ground power. I'm going to go through something very general. We can do other videos in the future of some of the different scenarios. So what we're going to do today, no ground power. We start in hotel mode. Once we land, we will finish off in the kind of turnaround state as if we were going to do another flight, and also in hotel mode. So that's the plan for today's flight. There are some other variations. What we can do, we're also going to, I'm doing air quotes here, do the walk around. But like I said, we're not actually going to physically get out the plane. We're just going to chat about some things as that goes, but we will let that time run a bit to give Magna some time to do stuff. Okay. So first things first, we are going to say we are ready to start setting up. Let's start setting up.
Captain, good afternoon. Captain, don't forget to open the document door so we have good ventilation.
Right.
Are you ready for the initial cockpit preparation procedure?
So first things first, he says, don't forget to open the document door, which is this little guy down here. We're going to close it for a little bit shortly as well when we need to get in here, but we'll open that for now. Then he says, are we ready for the initial cockpit preparation procedure? So we're going to say, go ahead. Go ahead.
Initial cockpit preparation procedure. Emergency equipment is checked. Gear pins and covers are on board. Documentation is stored. All circuit breakers are in. Parking brake engaged. Power levers on idle. Gust lock on. Condition levers, fuel shut off. Flaps 0. Landing gear lever down. Both EEC on. Wipers off. Battery switch on. MFC checked. Emergency bus and essential bus arrows illuminated. Standby bus and a voltage light extinction. Navigation light on. Avionics self-test is completed. Captain, external power is not connected.
Okay, so he's now checking. If you want external power, you need to quickly come in here and turn it on over there. And if you do, before that disappears, he will then use the external power. Since that wasn't connected, he's now going to prep for a hotel mode startup.
Fuel pumps and crossfeed tested. Engine 2 fire system tested. Captain, we can start engine 2 in hotel mode now.
Okay, so now we're ready to start engine 2 in hotel mode. He's ready, but we also need to speak to the ground crew. Now, you could go out for the walk around first, but it also means then that our first officer is not going to prep anything while we're doing the walk around. So the best way that I've found to do this is to actually start up in hotel mode first. Obviously, there's no danger to us doing the walk around because in hotel mode, the prop doesn't turn. That's the whole point. So that way, we start up in hotel mode, we get power to the aircraft, he can start prepping the cockpit, we go out and do the walk around and continue. But before we can actually start in hotel mode, we need to speak to the ground crew. So there's a couple of things we need to do for that. Firstly, we need to come down here, and this internal volume we need to turn up so that we can hear the ground crew. And then we come up here and we push the mechanical or the mech call. Now, I think that's supposed to light up green. I have found some bugs in the ATR, not FS2Crew related, just general stuff. That doesn't light up, but it does when the first officer uses it. I don't know if it has something to do with the power, but anyway. So they've now answered, and we can tell them we are ready to start engine number 2 in hotel mode. Confirm service door is closed and area is clear. So the service door is over there. We're going to have to close that because obviously we don't want people entering there behind this engine when it's running. We are ready to start engine number 2 in hotel mode. Confirm service door is closed and area is clear.
Service door is closed and area is clear. Clear to start engine 2 in hotel mode.
Right, so the ground crew have given us clearance. We can now let our first officer know that we are ready to do the start. I am ready to start engine number 2 in hotel mode.
Prop brake is off.
Okay, that's our responsibility to turn on the prop brake, and we can see it's currently off. But in order to engage it, we need this ready light to be green. And to do that, we need to come down here and click this. Now, I'm not sure. Okay, there we go. Sometimes it doesn't work the first time, so you have to push it more than once. Anyway, it's on. We'll turn that on.
Fuel
And
on.
he will notice that and continue. There we go.
Prop brake on. Right side clear. Ready to start. Engine 2.
Ready.
Started on.
So again, I'm just following the prompts over here. So here under voice command assist, it will give you a list of the
Fuel open.
voice commands
Ignition.
that are optional for you to run at this point, and then the flows or
pressure.
what we should be doing at this point. Now I've actually missed one here
45%.
because I'm talking. We're supposed to run the chrono when he says start engaged, and when he says 45%,
7
we
degrees.
stop it because we need to know that time.
Parameter stabilized.
Okay, and it's normally about 12 to 15 seconds, so we'll stop it there.
External power off. Procedure completed.
Start time 12 seconds.
Roger.
Okay, that's done. So we now have power to the aircraft. Obviously, these are busy powering up and doing self-test. We, at this point, can head out and do the walk-around. And he's actually going to ask us then if he can start.
Initial cockpit preparation. Procedure completed.
Okay, so our initial preparation is complete. And you can see next up is the full cockpit preparation procedure. There's too many P's in that.
Hi, here are some water models for you. Are we okay to start boarding?
Okay, cabin crew are ready to start boarding. As you can see, there's a lot going on. I'm not even getting time to explain all of these because there's lots of different things happening. Go for it.
Thanks.
Okay, when we tell him, now that we have power established to the aircraft, when we tell him we're going out for the walk around, he's going to ask if he can start this. And we'll let him do that, and I can possibly chat about some other things as we go. I'm heading out for the walk around.
Are you ready for the external inspection preparation procedure?
Go ahead. Okay, so this is prepping for our
Windshield
walk
heating
around.
on.
So they want to turn on certain lights and certain things that we
Oxygen
would check
on.
when we're out there.
Box pump on. Hydraulic crossfit on. Hydraulic crossfit off. Logo lights on. Wing lights on. Emergency exit lights hard. External inspection preparation procedure completed. The aircraft is ready for external inspection. May I start? Full cockpit preparation procedure.
Okay, so that's the next procedure. Go ahead. Okay, so in reality now we would go out and do the walk around, and he's already going to start prepping the cockpit. So while that's happening, there's a couple of things I want to mention in the settings that are probably important for this. So obviously, again, you've got your output devices for your headphones and your headset and speaker, depending on what you choose to use. I like to use voice control and open microphone mode, which I've explained in other FS2Crew videos. You can choose your accents, and then we've got some general options. So things that I wanted to point out here was, if you're flying on VATSIM, always use transponder 1 is a good idea. Otherwise, if you're using transponder 2, sometimes VATSIM with certain situations won't pick that up, and your transponder will not seem to be working to ATC, so that's important. You can disable the flight attendant, so maybe if you're using something like SLC or PAC-X or something and you want that to do the cabin crew, you can turn that off. These commands available on the ground allows you to give the first officer basically your autopilot control commands while you're on the ground, and he will set that. I like to have that on in case I just want him to set a heading or something while I'm taxiing the plane or whatever. If you're using GSX, you've got some integration with GSX down here, and FS2Crew will actually manage all your GSX stuff as far as I understand. I don't actually have GSX, so I can't comment on exactly how that works, but it is built into FS2Crew. What was the other one? Auto set and remove chocks, and FS2Crew controls the doors. I like to have that on so that your cabin crew and the ground crew will deal with the chocks and the doors as you go through the different phases of the flight. So for example, once the cabin crew comes and says that they're done with boarding, they'll go ahead and close up the doors automatically and deal with the tail prop and all of that stuff. So I like to turn that on. PAC sounds and cabin music, if you're using it, again, something like SLC or PAC-X, you probably want to turn those off and let those run the passenger sounds and the cabin music. If you're not, we can turn them on and have passenger sounds when they start boarding and stuff. That's completely up to you. The generic ATC is if you just want those calls made by the first officer. You can ask at certain points to request startup clearance, request taxi clearance, and it's all just the generic stuff with the airline down here and the flight number that you put in. It's grayed out because I've turned it off. If I turn that on, we can now select our airline and the flight number. Again, it doesn't interface with any ATC applications or with VATSIM or anything like that. It's purely for the calls. I've got that off because I'm not really using it. Right, if you have an annoying beeping sound when you mute your microphone, it's this setting. It should be off by default, but if I turn that on, now each time I mute and unmute my mic, you'll hear a beeping sound. So those are some of the settings I recommend. Again, I'm not going to go through a full breakdown of every single thing. In the settings, the layout is all the same. Okay, so next what we need to do is let him know that we are back from the walk around and then continue with our side of the full cockpit preparation checklist. External inspection completed.
Checked.
And there we go. I'm failing to talk again. I said external inspection. External inspection. Lots of tongue twisters in here. Okay.
CVR checked.
Now we continue with our full
No
cockpit
device
prep.
on.
And this is the part that I find interesting, is that it doesn't come up here under the flows. There's a lot to do.
Exit lights hard.
So I've got this up in the documentation. So first thing we're going to do is release the gust lock. And for now, I'm going to close this because we need to go ahead and do some
Ice and rain
tests.
protection checked.
So we come down here. He's obviously continuing with his stuff as well. That should be blank, and
Hydraulics,
that should be
checked.
off.
ELT
Then
checked.
we make sure that that's guarded. We set this to yes. We can now do the test for the stick shaker.
Air bleed panel checked.
We can release that. Set this back to normal.
Compartment temperature panel checked.
Come here and then we can
Avionics
check. If
panel
we're on
checked.
external power, we can check that. I'm going to check generator 2.
Oxygen
we
pressure
do have
checked.
all of that, which is cool. We can now close the console cover, make sure that that is guarded,
Smoke
which
test.
it is, and then I'll open this again because we're going to need it open for when
Exhaust mode
our
reset.
crew give us the load sheet. Okay, then we put the gust lock back because now we've done the test. Right, we can come down here and test oxygen. So we hold that down and see that that illuminates or is visible, and obviously we hear the sound. Okay, then you can set your console and reading lights as you need. We also just double check here that none of these have any lights in them and that they are guarded.
ATPCS test completed.
And we can turn this up, which I don't think actually does anything. Right, come down here, check the clock time. I'm just going to clear this. We make sure that here we only see flight director and our priority basically, which is this switch over here. And then no flags anywhere else. That's obviously fine at this point because I haven't loaded up any route just yet. Altitude should be wings level. Right. Then at that point we are done, so we can let him know that we are finished. Left side completed.
Captain, that's understood.
Okay, and he's gonna just carry on until he's done. At this point, I would come in here and get everything loaded up. So we're quickly gonna set that as our flight plan, set our fuel, and set our payload. Now, I don't know if you actually have to do this. What am I looking for? This. See, I think... Has that actually loaded the fuel that we need? Yes, it has. If I go here... Okay, cool. That's fine. So I normally just do this as well, so we get all of this information. And we can set our takeoff trim with that as well. Then we can come down here and set up our departure. So today it will be 3 left, and it is Vaso 3 Alpha, I believe. Cool, that's done. And he's still busy, so we might as well come in here and set up our arrival into Gaborone. So let me pull that up so I can check exactly what it is. Okay, it's ILS 08. Is there a Zulu? Yes. And it's DSL to Charlie.
Trims tested.
DUSL. Okay, let's see which one of those we're actually using. It would be Bondi. Imrock comes from the north. We're coming from the south. So we'll use Imrock. And put that
Weather
in.
radar tested. Sticker checker checked.
Right, transition altitude for our departure today.
APM tested. Pec checked. Power management checked.
8,000. Okay, this should all be done. I don't know how on earth it gets our cruise altitudes from Debrief, because that is
Furious
definitely wrong.
EWD checked.
Alternate today, we're just coming back to Johannesburg. And we do that at, is it 19,000 or 21,000, I think.
Cabin pressure panel checked.
It is 21. So,
Landing gear panel checked.
right, then this would have all been populated from our tablet, which is perfect. And then let's go back to our procedures and just see what else I need to check. Right, we need to come in here and just double check this next page. And no, I don't think we can actually change this, because this should also be 8,000.
Switching panel checked.
But can't actually put them in. There are a couple of bugs with the ATR, I think.
Side complete.
The other one I don't want to create is if you go into flight plan, if you click flight plan again, this all goes into temporary and you can't execute it or clear the temporary, so that's a bit of a weird one. And then the other one is this pull up. Does it stay on after he does this test? This is exactly what I wanted to check. No, it goes off, but you'll see once we take off, that pull-up stays on and there's nothing you can do to clear it.
Right. Cockpit preparation procedure completed.
He's done with that. We've finished setting up the FMS. The only other thing I'm going to do is dial this up to our initial climb on the SID is 8,000. I'm also going to set this to automatic, and we can go, we're in GPS or in FMS mode, should I say, nav, and then IS. We should get that. Cool. Okay, let's let him know that we are ready for the final cockpit preparation procedure. Okay, and then there's a bunch of stuff that we have to do for this procedure as well, which once again I've got in front of me. Final cockpit preparation procedure.
Final cockpit preparation procedure.
Okay, so the first one, we need to let him know the QNH, which is 1014, and we're at 5,600 feet. QNH 1014 reading 5,600 feet.
1014 checked. 1014 set.
Okay, the reason why I don't be terribly accurate with that, when you start saying lots of numbers, it sometimes gets confused. That's the Windows voice recognition issue, not FS2Crew. It probably will be different for you, but my Windows speech recognition, when I start saying 5,560, sometimes it gets a bit confused, so I normally just round it up to the closest 100. Right, fuel quantity, we have 1,800 on board. Fuel quantity, 1,800 kgs.
Affirmative.
Okay, now we can ask him to reset the fuel used and turn on the seatbelt and no device signs if we want, or we can do them ourselves, it doesn't matter. But in fact, I think he's already turned those on, which he has, so we can ask him to reset the fuel used and we can watch him do exactly that. Reset fuel used.
Fuel used is reset.
Okay, never mind. I thought we might actually see it on the screen, but we didn't, so that's cool. Okay, then we need to check weights, because next we are going to run... Oh, sorry, we've actually already entered the weights. We did that in here. There, we've done all of that. So next we set up the departure briefing. Now this one is also a little bit different to other FS2Crews, because you'll see we have this save and we can't run until we've told him, or basically asked him if he's ready to go through it. But first we need to put in here. So today we're doing a SID, bleeds will be on, NCR's not required, underweight, threats, nothing much today. Acceleration altitude, I normally do 1,500. That's probably not entirely accurate, but I haven't done any extra research on exactly what we would use in the ATR, so that seems pretty chilled. Okay, we can save those changes and now ask him if he's ready, and then we will go through it like the other FS2Crew software does. Are you ready for the departure briefing?
I am ready.
Now this is kind of cool. This is where it's different, is you have the option to read through all of these, to say what the transition altitude is, the acceleration altitude, bleeds, etc. Or you can run it and just have the AI, not AI, just have the artificial voice read it out for you. So that's what I'm going to do.
So we already know the aircraft, so we don't expect anything bad on that. We'll be following a SID today. The bleeds will stay on, anti-ice can stay off. Acceleration altitude is 1,500 feet. The transition altitude is 8,000 feet. I am not concerned about anything else for the departure. Any questions?
No questions. Final cockpit preparation procedure completed.
Right, so far we've just done procedures to prep the cockpit. Now we jump into our first checklist to check that everything we've done during those procedures has been done correctly. So let's go into that. The briefing has been done. Right. Final cockpit preparation checklist.
Final cockpit preparation checklist. Parking brake.
Engaged.
Altimeters.
QNH 1014, 5,500 feet, set and checked. So there's an example. It just didn't pick that up at all. So I'm just going to say set and checked. Before I carry on, there's one other thing I should mention that is new with this FS2Crew, is that if you're going through a checklist on, say, the 737 or the A320, and one of the challenges that the first officer gives you, and you respond, let's say, seatbelt sign. So seatbelt sign should be on, you say it's on, and he checks and it's actually off. They will just say incorrect, and in some cases they just move on, or they won't move on until you fix it, depending on the aircraft. This, he will actually give you the option for him to fix it, which is really, really cool. I would have thought, or in my opinion, might have been a bit better if they didn't have the whole process, which we'll probably see later, where he says that doesn't kind of match what I'm expecting. This is what it should be. Do you want me to change it? It takes quite long, so they maybe could have sped that up. I would have actually just preferred if he just said, do you want me to set it appropriately or whatever, and then just did it. But it's still very cool. So instead of you now having to go and find the issue, if you get stuck on something like that, you can actually just have your first officer fix it for you. But anyway, let's continue with the checklist. Set and checked.
Landing elevation.
3,200 feet set.
FMS com now.
Set.
Fuel quantity, fuel on board.
Checked.
Engine fuel used.
Reset.
Memo panel.
Checked.
Power management.
Takeoff.
Final cockpit preparation checklist completed.
Okay, once we get the load sheet, we need to confirm the takeoff data, which flashed up there for a little bit. Okay, let's just have a look. That all of this is done, that's fine. Right, so in performance, I'm going to keep that there. Once there's the reset button, which we've already asked him to do anyway. But once we get that load sheet, we need to confirm this, and this is where a lot of people are getting stuck. You actually have to click that button, because he's going to say takeoff data confirmed as part of the checklist, and you say confirmed, but if you haven't actually clicked that, nothing happens. Right now, we're basically just waiting to receive the load sheet, so I'm going to speed up the time just a little bit so we can
Here's the load sheet
that
for you
happen.
guys.
There we go. And technically, he actually delivers the load sheet through here. That's why we kept that open. And I think it won't work if that's closed. Thank you.
Sure, have a safe trip. See ya.
Okay, so we say thank you to him, and now we tell our first officer that we've received the load sheet and we can go through that procedure. Load sheet is received.
Zero fuel weight,
He's gonna verify that with what
1,300
we've
kilograms.
confirmed
Fuel, 1,900 kilograms. Gross weight, 1,200 kilograms. Center of gravity, 3.6%. Pitch trim, 1.4 up set.
So there's the call. Takeoff data confirmed.
Verified.
Cool. Right, now we can move on to the next procedure. Before propeller rotation procedure.
Waiting for the doors to be closed.
Okay, so now he's told us that we're waiting for the doors to close. And we can continue once that has happened, so I'm going to speed up the time a little bit so we get to
There
that
are
point.
3 passengers and 2 crew in the cabin. Captain, boarding is completed and Tailrock is on board. May I close the door?
Yes, please.
Captain, boarding completed.
Before propeller rotation checklist.
Before propeller rotation checklist. CDLS.
Okay, so we need to make sure that this doesn't say open. So first we need to actually close the cockpit door. Whoops, wrong side. Right, and then that should go out because that's in the closed position, so that's cool. And then we can continue. Locked. On.
Captain, this doesn't look right. CDLS off. Do you want me to fix that?
Okay, so there's an example. I'm not sure what I missed, but he can just kind of fix it for us. Yes, please.
CDLS on. FMS and takeoff data.
Oh, you actually have to set it all the way down. Okay, cool. Confirmed.
Trims.
Set.
Tail prop.
On board.
Doors.
Closed.
Seatbelts.
On.
Beacon.
On.
Before propeller rotation checklist completed.
Okay, here's another interesting quirk to be aware of. In this aircraft, your before taxi procedure is actually where we start the engines. So at this point, if we needed to, we would call for pushback, but we're not doing that today. A lot of the flights here with the ATR just start on these kind of remote stands where there's no pushback, you just start up. So we'll ignore that. Again, if you need to go through the procedures, they're in PDF, and obviously you'll get the prompts to do that as well. So what do we need to do next is release the propeller brake as part of our startup. So we need to call Groud to ask them if that is something we can do. So let's push the call button. You see it doesn't light up, but it tells you here ground crew is on the way to the aircraft. So we'll wait for them to answer us, and then we can ask if we can start up the engine, or if we can actually disengage the prop brake and have the prop start spinning.
Ground to cockpit.
Are we cleared to release the propeller brake?
Area clear. You may release the propeller brake.
Okay, so they've given us clearance. Now we speak to our first officer and say that we are ready to do so. Before taxi procedure.
Before taxi procedure.
Ready to release propeller brake. Confirm right side clear.
Right side clear. Prop brake is not off.
Okay, so now we need to release the prop brake. We need to do the same thing if that ready light is extinguished, which it is. So let's push this and see if that turns green, which it has. We can then switch off the prop brake, and that should unlock, and our prop should start spinning. Right, so we have rotation, and we can then have our first officer set the condition lever. Condition lever 2 auto.
Single channel. NP stabilized.
Right, and we actually don't really
pitch.
touch these at all. He does pretty much all of that for us. Okay, let's clear this chrono. You can also use the chrono button over here, by the way, because we're going to need to time the engine number 1 startup as well. Obviously, we did that when we started engine 2 20 minutes ago, but we're going to do that for engine 1 also.
Flaps 15.
Okay, so he's done the flaps. Now we start up engine 1. Ready to start engine 1, clear on the left.
Started on.
Okay, so then we hit the chrono.
Fuel organ.
When he says 45,
Ignition. Oil pressure. 45%.
okay, 15 seconds.
ITT 690 degrees. Parameters stabilized.
Start time 15 seconds.
Acknowledge.
Condition lever 1 auto.
Single channel. NP stabilized. Low pitch. Before taxi procedure completed.
Okay, so from this point, things get a little bit more normal if we compare it to other aircraft and other FS2Crew software that we've used before. So, we need to do the taxi checklist. Before taxi checklist.
Before taxi checklist. FWS.
Recalled.
Cockpit com hatch.
Closed.
That's wrong. Cockpit com hatch isn't closed.
Closed.
Condition levels.
Auto.
Anti-icing.
Off.
TRU.
On and checked.
Anti-skid test.
Performed.
Flaps.
15.
Nose steering.
On.
Before taxi checklist completed.
Something I should have maybe mentioned before is you'll see he actually goes through the electronic checklist on the aircraft, which is very, very cool. Taxi procedure, left side clear.
Right side clear.
Set taxi light on.
Taxi and takeoff lights on.
Right, and now it's time for us to get out of here. So, we can get him to test his brakes. Your brakes?
My brakes. Your brakes.
Emergency brake?
Verify.
FMS set. And now we can start our taxi
Takeoff
out
configuration
to the
test
runway.
completed. Taxi procedure completed.
Okay, taxi's gonna be nice and simple. We literally just turn right here and keep going straight. Until we get to the runway, we'll do an intersection departure from Lima. Taxi checklist.
Taxi checklist. Taxi and takeoff lights
On.
brakes.
Checked.
FGCP FMA.
Set and checked.
Takeoff configuration test.
Perform.
Taxi checklist completed.
Okay, that flashing there, that's my bad. It's because I pressed the autopilot engage button instead of my FS2Crew mute button because they're next to each other. Okay, I suggest you get into the before takeoff checklists quite soon because there's quite a bit of stuff to do, except you're going to end up waiting to synchronize the runway heading. So I don't know if this is actually how it's done in the ATR, but it seems like you have to sit on the runway and do quite a bit of a checklist. So we're going to do it the way it's intended, but I don't know how much sense that actually makes in reality. So we'll see. Because you'll see part of the before takeoff below the line is to synchronize this with the runway, which we can only do once around the runway. And then there's a whole bunch of other steps after that still. So we'll see. Before takeoff procedure.
Before takeoff procedure.
Gust lock off.
Gust lock off.
Okay, now we need to do the control test. So full right
Right aileron and spoiler.
and then full left.
Green light.
Okay, so that's good. Now, if your takeoff briefing has changed, you can redo the briefing at this point. We're not going to do that. So next, we just need to tell him once he's done to set the landing and strobe lights on. And there's your press heading sync button coming up after that. Set strobe lights on.
Strobe lights on.
Set landing lights on.
Landing lights on.
Okay, and now the checklist waits for us to synchronize the heading with the runway, so we can't actually have that checklist entirely done before we get onto the runway. So I don't know if I've missed something, but on all of the flights that I've done to test this today, that has been the same case. Because now you'll see we're actually going to sit stationary here for quite a while we finish off the checklist. So Get it lined up.
Before takeoff procedure completed.
Before takeoff checklist to the line.
Before takeoff checklist to the line. Takeoff briefing.
Perform.
Gust lock.
Off.
Flight controls.
Checked.
Transponder. TCAS.
Above.
Boost.
Off.
Airflow.
Normal.
Before takeoff checklist completed to the line.
Before takeoff checklist below the line.
Cabin crew be seated for takeoff. Cabin crew.
Advised.
Lead valves.
On.
External lights.
On.
Lateral flight director bar.
Centered.
Rudder cam.
Centered.
Before takeoff checklist completed.
Okay, so all of that I think we should do before we hit the runway, but so it seems like it's not actually when you click this button, it's when your aircraft heading lines up with the heading that the first officer has set to match the runway. So I'm not really sure what's happening there. But anyway, let's continue. So we need to announce our takeoff time and then set the power. So the calls for this, so I'm going to read it out and brief it first so that we don't miss anything. Takeoff at time whatever, and then once you get into the notch position with the throttles, power lever set at 70 knots, my control, and then obviously gear up once he calls positive climb. So I'm going to unmute my mic and let's go through that procedure. Takeoff at time 10:45.
Affirmative.
Power lever set.
ATPC is armed. Power set. $70 knots.
My control.
Your control. Rear on. Rotate. Positive climb.
Gear up.
And now green.
Engage autopilot.
Gear acceleration altitude. Autopilot engaged. ULM engaged.
Climb procedure.
Climb procedure completed.
After takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist, flaps, speed, landing gear.
Flap 0.
Captain, that's not correct.
Set flap
Landing
0.
gear expected to be up. Captain, that's not correct. Landing gear shall be up.
Up.
Flaps,
0.
power management NP.
Climb and checked.
Lead valves,
On.
taxi and takeoff lights.
Set and checked.
After takeoff checklist completed to the line. 1000 to go.
Okay, so I actually made a bit of a mistake there. I called for after takeoff checklist before I gave him the instruction to set the flaps. Then he was getting confused as part of the checklist, so I just raised the flaps myself. Not a big deal. But we should dial this up to 20,000 feet. Now it seems like you can't get the first officer to set the altitude, which is a little strange. You can get him to set pretty much anything else on the autopilot, but I couldn't find any commands
Transition altitude.
to get him to set the autopilot. Set altimeter standard.
Standard set.
Passing flight level 082 now.
Checked. Altimeters.
Standard and checked.
After takeoff checklist completed.
Okay, so the next thing we have to do is the cruise procedure. This is what I was talking about. This comes on, and you can click it, you can bypass it over here, it doesn't go away. So I think that's a bug in the ATR.
Flight level 100.
10,000 feet procedure.
This doesn't make much sense right now.
Flight level 100 procedure.
Landing lights set to off.
Okay, it's just because the speech engine picked up a different command, so that's
Cabin
fine.
pressure
It'll actually do
checked.
that. Now you can just ignore
All
this
device
because I
selected
triggered
off.
something to do with
Can I
takeoff.
release the passengers?
Go for it.
Seatbelts selected off.
Right, so we can ignore that for now. It's just because I triggered a takeoff thing when it picked up the wrong command. So now, the next thing will be the climb procedure once we get to 20,000 feet. And from there, during the cruise, we kind of just chill. And the next thing we need to go through is when we start the descent. Obviously, before that, we do the approach briefing and all of that. And then when we start the actual descent, we'll speak to him again. Okay, so all that's left is to climb up to 20,000 feet. So I'm going to cut the video there so we can try and keep this as short as possible. And I'll see you when we get to the cruise procedure. Right, so we've now leveled off at 20,000 feet. Obviously, I've chosen a lovely bumpy day to do this tutorial. That looks like it's actually raining down there. We might actually have some rain coming into Mount. I'm going to run this cruise procedure now, and he will set up everything for cruise. Set and checked.
After takeoff checklist completed. Cruise procedure completed.
Cool, we can now get rid of this. And next up we'll do the approach briefing. Okay, so it's time to start prepping for our descent here. So next up is the approach briefing. So let's go ahead and get that set up. So we're doing a star, it is an ILS. Okay, let me just pull up the chart so I can check this information. Right, so inbound course, 78 degrees. The frequency is 10990. We need a decimal there. Final approach fixed altitude, 5,100. Minimums will be 248. Missed approach altitude, we climb to 6,000. Runways dry, flaps 30. Transition level, I can't put anything in there. Even if I put 18,000, it just doesn't work. So we'll leave that for now. Threats, probably birds at Gaborone. And final sector, we're going to say no, because we would actually be heading back or doing another route to Joburg later on. So let's save those changes and then let him know we're going to do the brief. Are you ready for the approach briefing?
Yes.
Okay, once again, you can read out all of that information yourself. I'm just going to run
Alright,
this.
we'll be coming in at the start. We expected an ILS approach today.
That's understood. Approach stabilized altitude is 1,000 feet.
The inbound course is 078 degrees. We should be at 5,100 feet over the final approach fix. Our minimum altitude is 200 feet. In case of go around, we climb to 6,000 feet. Birds are a common occurrence in this airport, so please watch out. After landing, we should try and get to our stand quickly and make sure we get back out on time. Any questions?
No.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to take us down to that 5,100 feet and we can start our descent. actually just going to do vertical speed. And obviously we'll bring the throttles back.
VS, green.
Okay, 5,100. Right, and then what I need to do is just prep all of this stuff. So let's go to nav. Okay, we were 109.90. Enter that and transfer that over. And then course was 78. Now, what I need to do for that to work is go into heading mode. So we'll sync up the heading, go into heading select, because we need to switch this over to ILS, and then we can dial in the course of 78 degrees. Cool, like so. Flip that back and go back into nav.
And now green.
Right, that's a little concerning, but we'll see what happens when we get there. Okay, now we're pretty much prepped. We also just need to do decision height. .248. I'll just have to wait for this to scroll all the way up. Okay, 248. Right, that's set. Okay, let's do the descent checklist. Descent checklist.
Descent checklist. FWS.
No status.
Landing elevation.
Checked.
FMS, no performance.
Set and checked.
DH, MDA.
248 feet, set and checked. Set and checked.
Arrival briefing.
Performed.
Descent checklist completed.
Set up the approach navigation on your side.
I am setting up my site for approach.
Cool, so all that information that we've entered in, you can see he's putting in the frequencies and course and stuff on his side as well. Very, very cool. Okay, we're below our transition Ls. So let's just set our QNH. Set QNH 1015.
1015. 1015 set.
Passing 7,400 feet now.
Checked.
Approach checklist.
Approach checklist. Seatbelts.
On.
Landing lights.
On.
Altimeters.
QNH 1014 set and checked.
Cabin altitude.
Checked.
Approach checklist completed.
Okay, let's go through our stuff. Set missed approach altitude.
Lock green. Missed approach altitude is 6,000 feet set.
Flaps 15.
Flap speed.
Gear down.
Flaps set to 15. Speed checked. All management TO.
Flaps 30.
Flap speed. Gear is down. Taxi and takeoff lights selected on.
Before landing
Pulse,
checklist.
go around. Flaps 30. Cabin crew be seated for landing. Before landing checklist. Cabin
Advise.
crew. Landing gear.
3 greens.
Flaps.
Checked.
Power management.
Takeoff.
TLU low speed.
Checked.
Icing AOA light.
Off.
External lights.
On.
Before landing checklist completed.
Autopilot off. Yaw damper
Autopilot
off.
disengage. Yaw damper off. Low pitch. 70 knots.
My control.
Mayuk.
After landing procedure.
After landing procedure.
Set takeoff lights off.
Strobe lights selected off.
Set takeoff lights off.
After landing procedure completed. Taxi and takeoff lights off. After landing checklist. Radar standby. Flight controls locked. Flaps 0. Trims reset. Landing and strobe lights off. Anti and de-icing off. Probe heating off. TRU off.
Condition lever 1 feather. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff to chat about, which I'll do once we've shut down. So once he puts it in the feather position, we want to wait 30 seconds, but he should do the timing as well. But I like to run the chrono just to check.
Two minutes. 30 seconds.
Condition lever engine 1 fuel shutoff.
Condition level 1, feather and fuel shut off. After landing checklist completed.
Parking brake set, condition lever engine 2 feather.
Checked.
Yeah, we're going to leave it there because we're going to do hotel mode. So he'll let us know once it's spooled down enough and we can put the prop brake on.
NP stabilized.
There we go. So that's on, so we can just stick that on, and that'll
Propeller stopped.
Placing
give
chock.
power to the aircraft. There's the ground crew putting the chocks and doing all of that stuff.
Seatbelts
Our cabin
off.
crew will now open up as well. Parking checklist.
Parking checklist. Parking brake.
Engaged.
Taxi and takeoff lights.
Off.
Condition level 2.
Feather.
Beacon.
Off.
Transponder.
Standby.
Tail prop.
In position.
Seatbelts.
Off.
Parking checklist completed.
Okay, so there we are, safely arrived at Cercereticama Gavarone. Right, a couple of things to chat about. So, might be my mistake, is I think I'm inputting the minimums altitude incorrectly. Maybe I'm supposed to put the Barrow, because he never calls out minimums. We never actually get to that point. So that's something that I need to check. Otherwise, I think this is a fantastic add-on, and it's probably one of the most detailed versions of FS2Crew we've ever seen. Next issue is probably my poor flying skills. That landing, we floated forever, but the issue there was I came in too fast, and so you might have actually heard the first officer call go around because we weren't stable at 1,000 feet. It was as I asked for flaps 30. He actually said he suggested that we go around. So that's something else that you need to be aware of in this aircraft is if you aren't stabilized at that 1,000 foot marker or 1,000 foot reference point, he will tell you to go around. So there's actually quite a few other things that go with this software for me to explore in other videos. But actually my biggest thing is the issues with the ATR. So we need that navigation stuff to be fixed. The FMS or FMC or whatever it is, glitches to be fixed where it goes into temporary mode and you can't change it. And what was the other one? I mean, the little pull-up lights is not a big deal, but the navigation stuff really needs to be fixed. But otherwise, that is going to bring us to the end of this tutorial. As always, if you do have problems or questions, you can ask them in the comments of the video and I will try answer them. But the best way to get feedback is on the FS2Crew Discord. Obviously, I'm not a part of FS2Crew, so I don't have access to all of the information that they do. I'm not part of the development team. So if you really want the best possible advice, go to the FS2Crew Discord, which will be linked in the description below. Otherwise, this is going to be the first of quite a lot of flights with the ATR and FS2Crew on this channel, and then we can add this as a staple to like my NeoFly series and a whole bunch of stuff like that. I will be doing more tutorials on this. If you would like me to go through this specific interface, let me know, because these tutorial videos are quite a lot of work. So if everyone's kind of happy with the other videos that I've done on the interface, then it's fine. But if you specifically want the FS2Crew interface for the ATR, let me know down below and I will make that happen. And then we can look at doing some other flights where we go through the go-around procedure, we go through procedures with external power, we go through procedures where we actually do a turnaround and continue and all that kind of cool stuff. But anyway, that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. And if you did make it all the way to this point, thank you so much for watching. I hope it did help you at least manage to get through a FS2Crew flight with the ATR from start to finish. Even though we didn't get everything 100% right, That's all part of the learning process. So hopefully this was useful to you, and if it was, you know what to do down below, and I'll see you in another video hopefully.